Hello and welcome to 9 Inch Charge. Today we're going to do another Warscroll review. We're going to be looking at the Crawl Boys again. We're going to do a Warscroll review of the breaka-boss on Mirebrute Troggoth. This is a Warscroll that's been a bit like Marmite. Games Workshop released it ahead of time and it came out with mixed reviews, but we're going to delve in and have a look at it and see how he plays on the tabletop. Now, this Warscroll review comes at the request of Josh Nelson, who requested it in the comments. So if you guys have any requests of any videos you'd like to see, any topics you want covered, or any Warscrolls you want reviewing, please leave it in the comments. I do read all the comments, and if I'm able to, I'm more than happy to oblige. Okay, so the breaka-boss on Mirebrute Troggoth has a move of 5 inches, a save of 4+, a bravery of 7, and 12 wounds. Carries the keywords Destruction, Orruk Warclans, Orruk Troggoth, Mirebrute Troggoth, Crawl Boys, Hero, breaka-boss, and comes in at 180 points. So a couple of things I've noticed straight off the bat. Very cheap, really, for what you get stats-wise. 180 points is nothing for a hero with 12 wounds and a 4-up save, especially now we can do all these command abilities and heroic actions and things like that with heroes. In this edition, that makes him pretty solid, to be honest, straight away. The other thing that stands out to me straight away is that his move is particularly slow. 5 inches puts him just 1 inch quicker than a dwarf, about the same as a human. So he is going to lumber across the battlefield, and that does mean that it will be more difficult for him to get the matchups that he wants, especially because he's on a bigger base as well. So your opponent might be able to screen him out quite effectively and dictate where he goes on the battlefield. So that's something to be wary of. I was also half expecting the monster keyword. We know Troggoths aren't monsters, but it does look like he's riding a big monster. But alas, it doesn't have the monster keyword. So there'll be no monstrous rampages and no benefits, that you would get for having the monster keyword. However, as I said, for 180 points, you can't really complain. So let's have a look at those weapons. First up is the Biding Goad, which has a 1 inch range, 5 attacks, 3s to hit, 3s to wound, no rend, and damage 2. This is a bit of an odd weapon because it has a really great number of attacks, hits and wounds really well, especially as it's a hero you can get +1 to hit, so you could be potentially hitting on 2s. And it does good damage at 2 damage each, but it's got absolutely no rend. So it is going to struggle against all but the squishiest of targets. Really, I think, against the tougher targets, you're going to be fishing for those 6s for the venom-encrusted weapons to cause the mortal wounds on it. And with 5 attacks, you're likely to cause a couple of mortal wounds. Where this guy really shines is the Ironbound clubs. Now, there are abilities to increase the attacks characteristic of the Ironbound clubs. We're just going to have a look at the base rate for it to start with. So a 1 inch range again. 4 attacks, 3s and 3s, rend 2 and damage 3. Now that is much nicer. The Troggoth is stipulated as being a mount, which means it won't have access to venom encrusted weapons, but I don't think it needs it because its attack is pretty superb anyway, to be honest. That's going to smash through quite a lot of things quite significantly. I love it when you get weapons like this because this is what makes Warhammer Age of Sigmar so thematic. When this guy comes across a unit that, say, has a 5+ armor save, a horde unit of infantry, and he smashes them with his club and is successful, Rend 2 means there's no save, and he'll just go through 3 of them, just cleave straight through them and just knock them out of contention. So a very cool, very thematic weapon, good amount of damage, hits nice and easy, and with all out attack, there's always the ability to make that hit on 2s. Okay, so let's get on to abilities. First is the Breaker Harness. When a breaka-boss enters combat, he yanks his Mirebrute Troggoth's harness savagely to get the beast good and angry. At the start of the combat phase, you can say that the breaka-boss is yanking on his Mirebrute Troggoth's harness. If you do so, this unit suffers D3 mortal wounds, but for each mortal wound it suffers, you can add a 2 to the attack's characteristic of its Ironbound clubs until the end of that phase. So on average, you're going to roll a 2. That's going to give you 4 additional attacks, so you'll be doing 8 attacks with those clubs. And now he's twice as effective in combat as he was already. I mean, on average, 8 attacks, all-out attack, 2s to hit. You could do Finest Hour, 2s to wound, rend 2, damage 3. That's going to cleave through a lot. Of course, you do have to pay the price for this by taking those mortal wounds, and you could potentially take off a quarter of this model's wounds straight away by doing that. I do think the trade-off is worth it for the following reason. The Troggoth has the regeneration ability. Troggoths are able to regrow injured flesh almost as quickly as it is harmed. In your hero phase, you can roll a dice for this unit. If you do so, on a 4+, heal up to D3 wounds allocated to this unit. So at the end of the combat phase, after everything's said and done, when you get into the hero phase, this is only in your hero phase, mind, you can heal up to those D3 mortal wounds back on a 4+. Also, because this guy is a hero, you can do heroic recovery as well to get those D3 mortal wounds back. I also think this guy is quite a good contender to carry the universal artifact, the Seed of Rebirth, which means you can re-roll heroic recovery rolls for the bearer. This is quite an overlooked artifact because, to be honest, it's not great on a lot of characters. It's quite situational, but this guy doesn't have the highest leadership of 7. He might not always make his heroic recovery rolls, and if you're going to be causing additional mortal wounds to yourself, you're going to be able to want to heal those back as quick as possible, and the Seed of Rebirth will help you do this. So if you have a spare enhancement and you don't know quite what to do with it, and you've got this model in your army, consider the Seed of Rebirth. What I really like about the abilities on this Warscroll is how the breaka-boss really brings something to this Warscroll. He really does serve to make that Troggoth angry. He really does serve to amplify his power. And they work really well together because you can just feel that he's digging in and he's wounding it and making it really angry. But then equally it has this regeneration ability. How it doesn't turn around and just kill or eat the breaka-boss, I don't know, in a fit of rage. That would have been quite cool if they added that to the Warscroll, if it had that kind of negative impact. But I suppose it does take D3 mortal wounds to itself. Yeah, I like it. It's fun. And thinking back, I did say that its move is slow and people are going to be able to screen it out and put chaff in the way. But actually, it's going to have no problem clearing chaff. What I would like to know in the comments is, have you taken this model? Have you had any success from it? What is the biggest amount of damage you've managed to do with this model? Because it's going to be punching really hard all the way to the end of the game, as long as it doesn't kill itself, because those attacks never degrade, which is another really cool element of this Warscroll. Alright, so please be sure to drop this video a like if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to the channel if you would like to see more like this in the future. This has been 9 Inch Charge, and I will catch you next time.